Today I'm going to explain something that I've been saying a lot, I'd say over this whole year, since January this year. Republicans just want to win. I've done several videos on the behavior of Republicans, but I've never explained what I mean when I say that. This is what they do. They're more interested in what they're going to run on next time than what they're supposed to be doing this time. And then when they lose, they want to blame Democrats. When Republicans are in office, they are spending more time trying to get reelected and win other elections than they are doing what they were elected to do. So if I get in office and I made all these promises, okay, I'm going to be more fiscally responsible, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Instead of doing that, what Republicans are doing is, okay, we need more power so we can ram this through faster, or so we can have a consensus on these things. We need more power. So I'm going to go help Joe over here, and I'm going to go help Sally over here get elected, and then they can be with me in enacting these promises that I've made. And then they're going to run on the same thing so that they can be with me again and make it a more powerful consensus so we can get these things done. Or you can just do it. Republicans are furious right now. They're all going crazy. The entire right is mad at a guy named Matt Gaetz, who I've made a video about before. And the swamp creatures are mad. Well, we have to get to work. What are they doing? They have no plan. It's so corrupt and it's so bad for this country that when people actually stop and say, hey, we're not doing this. It's not right for the people who voted me in. For the people who voted all of us in. We have to at least try to stop the spending. It's so corrupt that they go, what? What are you talking about? We need you to sign right here in the dotted line. Well, what is it? What do you mean, what is it? We have to send money to Ukraine. For what? For the war. Whose war? It's it's their war. But I don't want to spend money on the war. The American people don't want that. I wasn't voted here to do this. Well, if you don't do this, we're going to cut off your funding so you can't run again. Oh, full-on extortion. Cool, blackmail. Republicans are furious at Matt Gaetz because he removed a guy that he didn't want in the first place. He stopped him from getting in originally, and he made deals with him. Hey, you got to do this, 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 and this, or I'm going to get you out. Arrogantly, as always, Kevin McCarthy said, okay, we'll do it. And then when it came time to pay the piper, Matt Gaetz said, hey, you need to do this or I'm going to get you out of here. What did Kevin McCarthy say? Bring it on.
A few moments later.
Doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it is necessary. I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. So I may have lost a vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people. I believe I can continue to fight, maybe in a different manner. I will not run for speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody up.
So, did Republicans learn a lesson in this? I don't think they did, because I don't think they still understand what happened. Matt Gaetz had very specific demands.
What's hard right about saying we should follow the law? Like, the law requires these single subject spending bills and a budget to be passed. What's hard right about saying when you say 72 hours to read the bill, you don't get to waive that to pass a continuing resolution? What's hard right about saying something that spends more than $100 million should not go on the suspension agenda where it is not subject to amendment? The things I am fighting for are good government and
reasonable things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a centrist. I would say small L libertarian, fiscally conservative, socially sensible. Matt and I agree on like 98% of the things, but it's not unreasonable to ask Congress just follow.
I don't think voting against Kevin McCarthy is chaos. I think $33 trillion in debt is chaos. I think that facing a $2.2 trillion annual deficit is chaos. I think that not passing single subject spending bills is chaos. I think the fact that we have been governed in this country since the mid-90s by continuing resolution and omnibus is chaos. And the way to liberate ourselves from that is a series of reforms to this body.
It was very disappointing that the first act of the Speaker pro tem was to send everybody home for a week, I guess, to cope with what had happened on the floor. But we're tens of days away from the government funding running out yet again, and we ought to be working on these single subject appropriations bills, send them to the Senate, demand that the Senate conference the disagreements that they have with those bills with us, so that we're able to prioritize the needs of the American people. And the swamp hates it, and they hate me, and I've made a lot of people mad in Washington, but I'm actually trying to provide good government to all the people outside of Washington, D.C., not an easier life for the people inside of Washington. Going to either the era of Trump, Jim Jordan, or Steve Scalise, there's not a single American who can't argue that that would be a House of Representatives more conservatively led. I just want us to follow the law. The law says that by now the Congress was supposed to have completed its work on single subject spending bills. We broke the law. I removed the Speaker for breaking the law, and now my colleagues likely want to remove me from the Republican conference for demanding fiscal sanity. And if that gets you kicked out of today's Washington, D.C., elite Republican conference, I guess I'll be spending a lot more time with you, Dr. G.
So why is this a problem? We've seen this before. When Matt Gaetz held up McCarthy's appointment initially, when it was being voted for Speaker, the complaint was, this is ridiculous, this is childish, this is silly, he doesn't have a plan. Sound familiar? That's what they're doing now. This is silly, this is amateur hour, we need to be governing, he doesn't have a plan. We're doing it again. It seemed to have worked last time, because while they didn't get everything they wanted out of McCarthy, they got a couple things. Now, he asked for the January 6th committee, all their stuff to be released to the public, so we could see what really went on. He did release the footage to Tucker Carlson, but then what happened to Tucker Carlson not long after that happened? Okay, so what happened to all that footage? Does Fox own it? Did Tucker take it? Or we're just never going to cover it again? I guess that's it. So he kind of half did that promise. What are the other promises that he made to Matt Gaetz?
Hey, I want term limits. And again, this goes against their own financial interests, because they're in office. So they're saying, I don't want to be in office forever. I think we should have term limits. Okay, well, what else do you want? Okay, Kevin. I would like for us to put some caps on spending. I would like at least 72 hours to actually read the bills you guys put through. What's the other one they put? That one's a big one, though, because they just put out 4,000-page bills, and then they want to vote on it the same day. All those requests seem very simple, basic, and they actually seem like their job. You got elected. Why are you voting on omnibus bills, which are just big, huge clumps of laws all together? Some aren't even related to each other, and you just pass it all at once. The last one that I remember was like $1.7 trillion. Nobody knew what was in the bill. You could throw anything in there. So you have military funding here, you have paying the troops, but you also have climate control laws that are thrown in there. And we're going to pass it all at once. Why? Why can't you go through and just do what the government's supposed to do and vote on specific things, especially when it comes to funding? They're in charge of the purse. It's their responsibility to go through things line by line and say yes, no, yes, no. I do it all. In my career, we manage a P&L. You're going down the line and figuring out what you can impact to save money, where you can spend, where you shouldn't spend, where you need to adjust. That's their job. So why is it a big deal that this guy's saying, no, we need to do this? It's our job. His request
to have all the government entities come in and explain their own P&L makes perfect sense.
Whatever laws you create or guardrails you establish, they blow through those. I mean, the FBI was violating the FISA law 38 times an hour during the period of time that the Inspector General was watching them. So they will not follow the law. You have to cut off the money. And that's why these single subject bills that I talk about are so important, because if you're just taking one big vote up or down on the entire government, you're not going to get in there and look at those specific task forces at the FBI that have done these things that are now being exposed. You have to have them stand before the committees and subcommittees of jurisdiction and defend each program and each task force and each agency. And then our investigative work can inform whether or not we're going to fork over the check to keep that stuff going. But under a continuing resolution and an omnibus, those folks always win, and we get targeted as a consequence.
It is the answer to all the government funding issues that we've been having for decades. Okay, FBI, what do you need this money for? Okay, we have to do this. Okay. We'll allow this, but we won't allow this. Boom. That's actual oversight. That's what we're supposed to be doing here, I thought. Department of Education, what are you spending the money on? Okay, we have this program, this program, this program. Yes, no. Cut this one. We don't need it. Why is that a problem? Why are conservatives against this? They just want to win. And they're not, after they've won, their focus is still on winning. This is what I mean. Matt Gaetz is 100% correct. You'll hear pundits say he's 100% correct, but I'm a realist. It's not going to get done. Oh, so are you ever planning on doing these things? Are you ever planning on fixing anything? It doesn't sound like it. And you had McCarthy like, oh, they just didn't want to pay the troops. Like, come on, dude. Who do you think you're talking to? That's not what the right does. It's not what we're supposed to do. That's a left thing. Play on their emotions. I'm just trying to get the troops paid.
If 98% of the conference wants you to be speaker, but you create a Congress where 4 people can determine if they work with the other side, how strong is the continuity of your government? I made a decision to take a risk to keep the government open. At the end of the day, if I am removed from speaker because I kept the troops from getting paid, they're able to be paid, and the border agents able to be paid, you know, that's a fight worth fighting for.
And this guy, this Matt Gaetz guy, he just doesn't want to pay the troops. No. There's a whole bunch of junk in there that he wants to address one by one. You don't want to do your job. You don't want to actually read the stuff. You don't want to actually decide on stuff and pass it or push it off. You just want to vote on it all together. It's a big ball of junk. And that's your idea of conservatism? Really? What are we doing here? Are you really conservative? I'm not. But the people who claim that, what do you really, you just want to win. You guys' quest for power is clouding your judgment on what the job is to do, and that is to do what you were voted in for. Here's the funniest part. If they just did what they ran on, they'd get reelected. And it solves the problem that you guys are so worried about of winning again. Just do what you're supposed to do. You said you were going to do ABC, do it. Or at least attempt to do ABC. Maybe you just get AB done. The people will see the effort and you will get reelected. Why? Because you did what you said you were going to do. The problem comes when you're more focused on everyone else's elections. Well, what about this person over here in Virginia, and this person over here in Colorado, and this person up here in Montana? Why? Why do you care? Why do you care? Is it really about what those people need in those different states? Or is it about winning? Having more seats here? Because that's what it seems to be about. And that's party politics. I'll never be a part of that garbage. But do you really have the people's interests at heart? Or are you just trying to win more elections? Because if you're just trying to win more elections, have at it. I have no interest in that. I'm not a Republican. I don't even like most of them. But what I will say is the more you guys do this, the more you become leftists. You don't realize it, but that's all they do. They are in constant fundraising mode for the next election, which is why they don't focus on now, which is why the country is so jacked. It's gotten to the point where people like McCarthy and all these people who apparently love him now, the same people who didn't want him in and were all gung-ho on getting Jim Jordan in, now are mad that he's gone and Jim Jordan's coming in. Again, what is this about? It was pretty unanimous across the right. If Jim Jordan were the speaker, that would be great. But it's not realistic because he wanted to focus on the committees. Cool, no problem. Now he says he's going to do it, and you guys are mad. This is just ridiculous. Matt Gaetz needs to go. Why would he do this to McCarthy? Everyone was against McCarthy in the beginning. But he was the popular choice, and it was kind of understood. He's a rhino, okay. Mitch McConnell's best friend. He's Luntz's old roommate. All right, we know who he is, but realistically, he's the guy we're going to get in because we can't get Jim Jordan. Now you can get Jim Jordan and you're still complaining. What is this? A continuing resolution, just going on and on and on forever. Okay, we're just going to push it back and we're going to keep trying this. Every year, the time comes where they need to come up with a budget. Every year, they fail. Why? It's their job. And instead of dealing with it, they just push it off. Oh, well, another 6 months. Rand Paul talked about this.
Now, people argue that it's conservatives' fault. You don't have the Christmas spirit. Somehow you're holding up government. Well, whose job is it to produce this? The people in charge of spending. The people in charge of both of the parties. When did they know that this would be necessary? Well, it's in the law, September 30th. You got 9 months, almost 10 months, to produce a plan, to have a spending plan. They weren't ready on September 30th, so they voted themselves 90 more days. They weren't ready last week either, so they voted themselves another week. And now we have it at 1:30 in the morning this morning. But what's the clamor? The clamor is to vote. Vote now. Let's get it done. Why are you standing in the way of spending? Well, the real question is this. What is more dangerous? What is more dangerous to the country? $1.1 trillion in new debt, or as Republican leadership likes to say, oh, but it's a win. It's a big win. We're getting $45 billion for the military. So which is more important? Which threatens the country more? Are we at risk for being invaded by a foreign power if we don't put $45 billion into the military? Or are we more at risk by adding to a $31 trillion debt? I think the greatest risk to our national security is our debt. The process stinks. It's an abomination. It's a no good, rotten way to run your government. $6 trillion entity, and they want 24 hours to process this, and then they want to go forward.
What is the other thing they do? They raise the debt ceiling. All right, so we know we spent the $5,000 on our credit limit, but since we have the power, we're going to go ahead and raise that limit to $10,000. And then when it comes time, all right, we know we kind of overspent and we're at the $10,000. Okay, since we have the power, we're going to go ahead and raise it to $15,000. And they just keep doing this to the point of what? $33 trillion? What is our debt right now? $33 trillion? It's probably more than that now. Last time I checked, it was $33 trillion. Trillion! Because they keep raising the debt limit. They keep doing these continuing resolutions and just putting off the inevitable. And at some point, that inevitable is going to be so large, it can't be addressed. This is what the left does. This should not be what the right does, and it's not to be tolerated. Not.